This is Walt with Multiversity Comics here with Greg Pak. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thanks much.
All right, so the just announced Dead Man's Run here at Aspen Comics. What can you tell us about this new series of yours?
This is it's a crazy story. It's a jailbreak from hell, and hell is a place on Earth. It's a maximum security prison in the California desert, and there's a jailbreak that's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be nuts. Our hero is a young cartographer named Sam Tinker, and he is hell-bent, if you will, on saving his sister, who is the only innocent in hell. So it's a series that we've been developing in conjunction with Gail Ann Hurd, who is the legendary producer of Walking Dead and Aliens and many other great movies, and her company Valhalla Pictures, or Valhalla Entertainment. So yeah, we're having a huge amount of fun. Tony Parker is the artist, and he's doing a great job.
Something we'll come back to later is the way that you do research. And with this series, how much research did you do into, prisons? And you mentioned cartography, and did you actually do significant research on how cartographers work, or do you have any first-hand experience?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I haven't done that hardcore research on the art of cartography yet. I have done a lot of research in prisons, though. I mean, that was where I really focused most of my prep time, looking at prisons throughout the ages, and also prison breaks, and also different depictions of hell. Because hell, stories about hell have been popular for millennia, and they are, there's just so much rich metaphorical stuff you can deal with there. We're trying to do something a little different, and I'll just go ahead and tell you some stuff, which is that, when you think about hell, on one level, hell seems like, okay, that's where sinners go. Therefore, it is actually, it's part of the machinery of cosmic justice. But when you think about the way we think about hell as like the worst place there is, right? And when you talk about hell on earth, when you talk about, oh my God, it was hell, on a visceral human level, I think hell is about injustice. You know what I mean? It's about corruption. It's about suffering for something you don't deserve to suffer for. That's hell. Is like to be stuck in a hellish place with no recourse unjustly, And so these themes of corruption and injustice are actually threaded throughout this storyline, and we've created a whole world, a whole political system, really, where hell fits. Hell fits into this kind of place where our world and the next world intersect. And in the world of Dead Man's Run, there's a whole kind of very down-to-earth political reality surrounding how hell is managed. And so we're really striving to kind of combine that very real, sort of relevant feeling with these kind of supernatural and fantastical elements.
So do you think it's safe to say that this story is fairly allegorical in nature?
Well, I don't know if I'll let readers decide.
Okay. And how long have you been working on this idea? Is it something new, or is it something that's been kind of like on the back burner for a while, trying to develop, and then you had your chance? Or?
Yeah, well, it's been percolating for quite a while. I mean, we first started talking about it about 2 years ago. Ben Roberts at Valhalla called me up with this crazy idea of a jailbreak from hell, and we've just been, as schedules worked out and everything, we were talking about it intermittently, and then finally all the paperwork got settled, and all the schedules worked out, and now we're, in the last year or so, we've really been able to focus on it in a very serious way, and all of these things have come together. So, but it's nice when a project has some time to percolate, So we've been able to bounce ideas off each other for quite a while.
All right. Moving over to your Marvel work, as we said, we talked with Fred the other day, and that's when I mentioned research. He talked about how you, in particular, did a lot of the research into the politics of Canada, that you read Canadian news and so on and so forth. How much work did you put into that, and what kind of sources did you use besides just the news?
Right. Well, that series of tubes called the internets is very helpful. So yeah, I mean, I was reading Wikipedia entries and then getting corroboration from actual verified sources and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I did a lot of poking around online reading about how the government of Canada works, and in particular emphasis on how the elections work and how turnover happens. And it was interesting because there have been constitutional crises in Canada that Americans and the rest of the world have no idea about. You know what I mean? And it's fascinating. I mean, talking to Canadians, I've talked to a few Canadians, and I'm talking about how fascinating this is, and they're like, "Yeah, fascinating, whatever." Sometimes this stuff, I see some fists being bumped over here.
Cameraman is Canadian.
Okay, there you go. But the sort of intricacies of the political process can sometimes be very tedious. But when I got very excited reading about it, because it was like, oh, well, this stuff actually fits into this world that we are, this crazy thing we're thinking about doing. Because the whole premise of the Alpha Flight book is that Canada has gone fascist, and in Canada, where you have where elections can be called, sort of similarly to in Britain, as opposed to them being scheduled at certain times. You actually have the potential for a turnover in government in a fairly short amount of time, which is a harder thing to kind of to fictionally stage in an American, if we're setting it in America. And then there's also these intricacies about well, I won't go into it all, but it was just cool, the way these things kind of allowed themselves to fit in. And then what was really nuts is that. So we set up this whole thing where there's this change, there's this election in the middle of all this crisis, in the wake of Fear Itself, the Marvel Universe. The week the book came out, there was an actual election in Canada. And so these events kind of reality copied us. So we're talking to lawyers, see if we can get some money back. But no, it was nice.
So how much of this do you think is just you and Fred telling, a story that you find is exciting? And how much of it would you say is something in terms of just, this is something we should be worried about, something we should, maybe this is always a possibility, something on the brink? Is it a real...
we thought that this was a great match for Canada, just because if we could make people believe that there could be a fascist government taking over in Canada, then we would really have done our jobs. Because the stereotype of Canada is like mild-mannered, multicultural America's hat. You know what I mean? And that's the. I'm not saying I endorse that stereotype. I'm just saying that is the stereotype. America's hat was a term told to me by a Canadian. I did not come up with that myself. But anyway, but if we could make it work there fictionally, then we would have done something fairly convincing. I am not trying to say that Canada is in danger of becoming a fascist nation. However people want to read it is fine. People can always take something and enjoy it on whatever level they enjoy it on with whatever metaphor or allegory they want to lay over it. I'm not saying we are actually trying to predict or make any predictions about actual events.